Meanwhile, on top of a building, with the rain falling down, two men stood looking down at the scene. It was Taishik and his father, the president of the association, who declared that it's begun. Below, an army of undead was marching into the battlefield in orderly fashion, lead by the Dullahan and followed by the Lich. As the two men stared down at the undead, they were skeptical at first, but couldn't help remark that the force below them was actually an army, or something close to that. The president asked Taishik if he was confident that the child wouldn't turn into a monster, and Taishik replied he wouldn't know something like that since all he wants is for him to be happy. The president declared with a grave face that if that child ever becomes a monster and interferes with their plans, he will have to step in. Just at that moment, a person informed them that the preparations have been completed. Taishik told him that from now on, keep anyone from entering this place, whoever it is, don't let even a single rat inside. At another location, Sequoia and his guild was running to their destination, when he felt energy from a distance that was different from ordinary players. He was thinking how they were going to restrict such a wide area, but it looks like they used Grigori. It was an organization that looked like they were affiliated with the association, but in reality are purely private soldiers under the association president and Taishik direct command. They have mysterious organization with unknown origins and history. But rumors of them suggest they exist to protect Korea and save humanity. Sequoia was roused from his thinking by his guild member, telling him the enemy is in front of them, and upon looking sees a group of Iron Guild members led by the maniac with red hair. Sequoia was thinking since they are unaware of their plan, he could use a surprise attack instead of attacking them directly. He approached the group offering his greeting and his name, and then stating they are reinforcements for the gate break, when suddenly he is attacked by the maniac swinging his sword. Without hesitation, Sequoia let out his ice attack in retaliation while dodging backwards to avoid the blow. The maniac was surprised that he was able to dodge the attack, saying players here aren't half bad, and with a swing of his sword shattered the ice barrier in front of him. The maniac with red head remarked he didn't care for breaks or reinforcements, since Rogers told him to eliminate anyone who blocks their way. Acting like some kind of a lunatic, he shouts for them to have a fight, because they look so much more fun than a break. This man is the Iron Guild Military Force second team leader, the Man Rhodes. Meanwhile, on top of a building, Giju was riding his wolf looking at the scene before him. The teams for the Iron Guild was as follows: the branch manager Rogers Hand as the head, first team leader was Charlemont in his armor, second team leader was Rhodes with his red hair, and third team leader was Carlin the Blondie. And Giju's job was to make sure the Iron Guild teams remain separated, so they can't regroup. Since it was raining heavily, he used Rain's ability Elemental Water, which allows the user to turn the body into water, to partially turn the wolf into water to travel faster among the builds. In terms of the number of troops, they were superior, but they can't let their guards down, since they were only an improvised alliance. If they allow the Iron Guild members to group up, it will be to their disadvantage. At another location, the first team leader of the Iron Guild was being assaulted by members of the Child and Morningstar Guild. An archer shot his arrows at the Claremont, which caused a large explosion upon contact. When the smoke cleared, an unharmed Claremont came out asking, "Is this how they hold their welcoming ceremonies?" The members of the Morningstar Guild were cursing their luck for having to face Charlemont. While Donghi from the Child's Guild was having his hands full just fighting the ordinary Iron Guild members, so had no leeway to help the other party, and was wondering when Giju would be showing up. Charlemont, wielding his sword, was easily able to break up the defenses that were blocking his path, commenting that they were so weak to think that he would be ambushed by such low level of strength, it was hurting his pride. He declared that they should at least have brought a ranker to take him down, and just as he spoke, Giju appeared above him saying, "Here's a ranker, you son of a bitch." As Charlemont looked upwards, Giju's swords came slashed down on him and killed him on the spot with a single strike. System notification informed him that cannibalism has been activated, and was attempting egoification of player Charlemont, but unfortunately the egoification has failed and only a fragment was absorbed. The other players seeing the situation were shocked, while Giju was surprised at the cannibalism. Remarking on the egoification failed and the fragment, however else call, brought his attention back to what was important at the moment. He asked if J1 was okay, but J1 just replied that he was late. Saying his apology, he pulled out a potion from his gate and handed it to him to drink. J1 asked, "Where did he pull that out from just now?" while Brunhart was shouting he wasn't a storage. Looking at the scene, one member of the Iron Guild remarked that the team leader was killed in one strike. As he noticed, it got dark all of a sudden, and upon looking up saw the jaws of the wolf closing in on him. It killed him on the spot, shocking those surrounding him, while Dong He was wondering if this monster was an enemy or, then upon looking at Gidju's directions saw the wink from him. He then shouted that the wolf was their ally, so don't attack it, and told them to fall back to the rear. However, the Iron Guild members started to gang up and attack the wolf with a coordinated attack. Upon seeing the wolf disappear into a puddle of water, they started to wonder if it was dead. Just then, the water started to rise up from behind them, forming into the wolf, and with a mighty roar attacked them. As one of the child guild member asked Dong He if they should attack the rear now, Dong He warned him to calm down since they didn't want to get caught in the splash damage if they joined recklessly. While Dong He was thinking about the attack on Charlemont just now with the corpse disappearing, as if it was chewed apart by something, and this situation was same as the time with the Guardian subjugation. Upon thinking about it really hard, he saw the situation in front of him, which had Gidju and his wolf running rampant and killing remnants of the Iron Guild members mercilessly, then concluded what the hell, he saw nothing. On another battlefield, the undead army was fighting against Rogers and the third team of the Iron Guild. The Lich was in the air surveying the situation below, thinking he just had to tie this group up according to the orders of his great master. However, the weapon that Rogers Han was using was the worst match against them, since it was a holy weapon being used against the undead. The Lich create demonic arrows to send down from above, but it was easily blocked by Rogers with a sword blow, which also reached the Lich and sent him flying backwards. Rogers stated that he was a moron for underestimating the power of 9, and told Carlin that he can handle things here himself, so regroup with the other teams. She replies that she doesn't think that's necessary, but is cut off by Rogers telling her that he can tell from this fight that their movements are different from the usual monsters. Looking around, he states that he has a bad feeling. On another battlefield, members of the fallen Iron Guild members litter the ground. As members of the Morningstar Guild and others look towards a certain direction, wondering if the green light they just saw now was the Iron Guild. Dong He by Gidju's side comments that, as expected, the scale of Rankers battles are on another level. While Gidju ponders for a second, then asks his egos, could that be a holy sword, and they reply with an affirmative, but El tells him that it kind of feels different. Just then Brunhart tells his master that the skeletons have been wiped out, to Gidju's surprise. It was faster than he had expected, so called on his wolf and tells the other allied guild members that he will be going to support another team. They should finish treating their wounded and then regroup. Afterwards he went off at top speed to where the green light was, jumping from building to building. Nonetheless, at a meeting room located outside the battlefield, the top 10 guilds were discussing the actions of the association. The Hephaestus Guild, that should have been maintaining the area that the break was occurring, were disgruntled, since the association has kicked them out and forbid them from entering the area. Another guild master of the Blue Dragon Guild spoke that this was definitely strange, since the association has never acted arbitrarily to this extent before. Also noticing that Sequel was not present at the meeting was also suspicious. One of the other guild masters suggested to hear the opinion of the alliance leader of the 10 great guilds, and everyone turned their heads to look at guild master Li Xianho of the Anzella Guild. As the rain continues to pour down on the battlefield, Gidju rushes forward while asking Brunhart, how are Hart and Dullahan doing? Brunhart replies that they are still fighting, and should be able to do at least that much since they are that many crystals. Gidju, while concerned, comments that's a relief, but if that's the case, then the team they were fighting must have been divided into two. Since not even the two of them strengthened by the crystals would be able to handle the entire team by themselves. Then it's possible that the Kane Guild might be fighting with two teams at the moment, so he must hurry. Since he only had 2 hours to finish everything. In a flashback before the battle, he was in the director's office talking with Tashik. They will be able to block off the entire area using highest grade barrier, however it won't be for very long. There's the issue of the usage expense, and also accounting for interference from other guilds. At most they can keep it blocked is about 3 hours. Tashik warned him that no matter what, he will need to finish everything within 3 hours. Unfortunately, in the present time, the president of the association was saying that at most they can keep it blocked for 1 more hour. Tashik was angry with this and said it was different from what he said before, and the president said it can't be helped, and that is the limit. Taeshik shouted angrily what was he talking about, even if the Ainzella protests, but the president cut him off saying that Lee Xianho was coming in person, which shocked Taeshik. The president told him to call the Grigori, their private army, since it's time for battle. Meanwhile, at the Canes Guild location, the battle with the Iron Guild team was getting heated up. The Canes Guild was getting into a difficult predicament, since they had enough trouble with one team, but another just showed up and changed the balance of the fight against them. Even Sequel was having an issue, since now he was faced with two commanders instead of one and was getting pressed hard. However, the redhead was telling the blondie to fuck off, since the prey was his. And she retorted, how many times has he failed in missions after he did shit all by himself like this? Even though they were arguing, their teamwork was so refined that it was giving Sequel a hard time. He retreated backwards from their rushing attacks, and using his feet to create an ice barrier to encase them both. The blondie was swift enough to dodge out of the attack. Carlin was the girl who doesn't have any outstanding characteristics, but her speed and reflexes were a problem. Since Sequel couldn't use the environment to his advantage, since she was able to detect the attacks just as it was happening and react accordingly. While in a 1-versus-1 fight, that might not be a problem, but combined with Rhodes, who has the unique ability regeneration that can heal cut and wounds almost instantaneously, it was a different story. Sequel was regretting not using a fatal attack at the start, since Rhodes' combat ability is lower, but since Carlin arrived, Rhodes is playing the role of a tanker so that Carlin can display her true skills. He needed to separate them, even if it's just for a moment, to have a chance at winning this fight. Just then Carlin sensed something and warned Rhodes about it. As Giju jumped past Sequel, crashing through the ice wall, then proceeded to go between the two and came to a stop behind them. Carlin was caught off guard. Wonder what just went by them. Giju was using his new skill acceleration that was acquired using Lu's demonic arts on Hermes. It gave the ability to accelerate beyond physical limits for an instant. Carlin turns around and wonders just who the hell was that, since she couldn't follow his movements at all. And Rhodes beside her just notices cuts appearing on his body and looks at it in puzzlement, remarking, what is this? Then in the next moment, shouts in pain as blood gushes out in all directions from the multiple cuts on his body. He turns to Giju and calls him a fucking bastard, telling him that scratches like these won't work on him, no matter how many times he does them. However, to his shock, Giju calls out his name and tell him about his unique ability regeneration will not work anymore, due to a child of his with a skill. As we get a status window for the updated Rain, which has wound aggravation, which blunts wound recovery and even aggravates them. As blood continues to drip down around Rhodes, Carlin is stunned at finding that this person was able to stop Rhodes' regeneration ability, since something like that isn't possible with just ordinary items or skills. Rhodes remarks that he must be a unique ability user, as we get a classic pose of Giju standing with his two swords while a lightning strike flashes in the background. With a maniacal laugh, Rhodes asks how long has it been since he was injured this much, then admits that their compatibility is bad and his unique ability far surpasses his. However, did he think he wouldn't have a countermeasures against his only weakness? After saying these words, his eye glow red and he grips his fist as he grows bigger using his Berserker skill, which shocks Giju. With his bulging muscles and his wounds no longer bleeding, he stomps the ground and instantly covers the distance between them. Saying with this, we're even, and then swings his sword down on our boy, causing a mighty explosion. People in the surround area are shocked at the amount of dust floating in the air, especially on a raining day like this. Carlin thinks that the fight must be over on that side, since he used the Berserker skill that substitutes the overflowing regeneration ability to other stats, to temporarily increase combat ability explosively. To think he used the skill he left unused due to the long aftereffects. But her thoughts are interrupted by a voice that asks her where she was looking. As the ice breaks to reveal Sequel standing there facing her. He tells her that he's not down yet and she shouldn't have the leeway to take her eye off him, as he sends multiple ice shards in her direction. She deftly dodges the attacks, saying, "Don't you already know that your attacks won't reach me?" Confidently stating that she can handle someone like him without Rhodes, as she maneuvers around him to strike him from behind. However, he laughs, saying it looks like he was being severely underestimated, and unleashes his unique ability Absolute Zero, which started to freeze everything around him including Carlin. He tells her the reason he was being pushed back was because he was saving his strength in case things didn't go as planned, but since Giju was here now there's no need for him to do so. She jumps back out of range and replied, didn't he see that his comrade must have become minced meat by now? Sequoia just stood there looking at the dust cloud saying, I wonder. As the dust starts to clear, an image of Giju on top of Rhodes with his sword plunged to his back. As Carlin witnessing the scene before her eyes is shocked and says it's impossible. Sequoia then turns to Carlin saying, now then try blocking this as well. As he casts an ice wall towards Carlin, but she was unable to dodge since its size was so massive, it towered above the builds in the area. Everyone is shocked again at this sight, as Carlin is frozen within the ice and Sequoia comments that he went a bit too far since he was a little heated. He turns to look towards Giju, wondering is their battle not over yet. Lu asks his master what was he doing, and Giju is wondering why he couldn't pull out his swords. As a grin appears on Rhodes' face, Giju senses something and jumps off his back, as a sword is thrust through Rhodes' chest and almost hit him. Rhodes pulling his sword back out remarking how fun, and shouting let's start fighting for real now. Just at that moment, they are interrupted by Sung-hoon calling out Giju's name and shouting they have to finish this as soon as possible, since ranker Lee Seonho is coming. Meanwhile, at the outskirts of the barrier, a confrontation between the guildmasters and the association president is starting to brew. As Lee Seonho with the other guild leaders are asking the association president and Taeshik, isn't it time for them to tell them what is going on inside? Well, stay tuned to find out what happens in the next episode. Until next time.